When my career ended, I was on the couch. I had just had surgery. I couldn't skate. I knew it was over. My wife came up to me and said, I'm miserable. This isn't what I signed up for in our marriage. And I had to come to the reality that I was so focused on winning in one element of my life, and everything else in my life was exploding.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. As many of you know that have watched this show or listened to the show, one of the main reasons I do this is selfishly, I like meeting different people. Being an airline pilot, traveling all over the world, I always think it's just interesting. You know, you can be in a cafe in Munich, Germany, or in a bar in Sydney, Australia, and someone sits down next to you, you start talking to them, and you realize, wow, this person has a pretty interesting life. You know, and I've learned that walking down the street, you know, seeing people, they've got a past, they've got the present that they're living in, and then, you know, they have a future, as we all do. But we never really take the time to meet them unless they happen to be in our circle, whether they're in a group we're in a meeting or whatever. But I just find it interesting that you take people you don't know, put them in a room together, start talking to them, and you realize, wow, we've got some connections. We actually have some similarities. We have nothing alike, whatever the case may be, but every one of us, we've got a story. We have a story to tell. Sometimes we just need somebody to ask us the right questions. So today, Mikey Taylor is on. Mikey, thanks for coming, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And what a beautiful intro. And it reminded me of some friends that I have, tech founders. Okay. And as they were building their company, they were driving Uber to try to have some revenue coming in while they got it off the ground. And I remember asking a handful of them, how's driving Uber? And they said the same thing that you just mentioned. They said, it's actually so much fun because you get to talk to so many people. It's actually, I look forward to it now. So I think that's accurate, what you just stated about flying.
You know, I'll tell you a funny story. So I've got a buddy of mine that has a fishing business up in Napa. And he's got a whole thing, and he does these guides. And as an airline pilot, sometimes I'll have a layover. And I was in San Francisco on a layover, and he says, "Hey man, you want to go on this fishing guide tour with me?" I'm like, "Sure." So I go on the boat, and I'm helping out, and I'm doing these things. And this guy's there. He's some big attorney, you know, Silicon Valley attorney, and he's talking to me about life and what do I want to do with my life, and he's asking me all these questions, and I never said a word, and I'm just trying to help out as best I can and be a good guy, paid for it, for his tour, and I'm doing the best I can. I'm not a very good fisherman. I'm definitely a worse deckhand. And the guy's giving me advice in life and what I should do. And of course, hey man, he maybe has more than I know, so I'm listening. And at the end of the thing, it's funny. At the end of the thing, he says, "So do you work?" And I said, "Actually, I do work." And he says, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm an international airline pilot." And he was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm just here on a layover helping my buddy." And he goes, "Man, I wish you would have said that." I said, "I wish you would have asked." Yep. We spent all day together. You never asked.
That's right.
And he was like, "Man," he goes, "I got to say, man, that is," and his son was with him. He goes, "That is a good lesson for me, son." He goes, "That was a lesson that I never was interested in the people. I was always trying to be interesting to everybody around me."
Yeah, that's right. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, 2 ears to listen, right? Wants us to listen first.
Yeah. So I can relate. So Mikey, tell us who you are. Tell us your story, man.
Okay. I've had a journey in life that I can only take very little credit for. I started off skateboarding, Southern California, picked up a skateboard because my friend had one. I was born with a very obsessive personality, so I got obsessed with it. I got good at it. And then that ended up turning into a professional career. So I was a pro skateboarder for about 14 years, which was a dream come true. I got to do exactly what you talked about. I got to travel the world. I got to meet people. But I had a career that was a passion turned career, which was good, but I had a shelf life. And so about halfway through my career, I started getting very concerned about what happened afterward. And so I took a two-prong approach. I started getting very aggressive with investing. And then I started my first business before my career ended as my hopefully natural transition. And that was in the beer industry. I started a production brewery called St. Archer down in San Diego. And that company we actually sold to Miller Coors. And then from there, I started my current business, which is called Commune Capital. And we are a private equity real estate firm. So for anyone that doesn't know what that means, we go out and find real estate investments. We go out and find investors that want to invest in real estate, but don't want to be a landlord, don't want to do the work or sign on loans. And we pair the two together and then manage the whole thing. And then last, I am the mayor of Thousand Oaks. So I'm involved on the policy making side for my city. And then most importantly, I am a husband and a father of 4, and I have our 5th coming in February.
Wow. Dude, what a great freaking story, man. I mean, that as we talked before the show started, you know, I'm from Southern California also, so I get the lifestyle and everything. I was always a little too chubby to skateboard, but I get the idea of it, living in Huntington Beach for many years. But I think it's a great story of pivot. I think I would say, you know, you life, I think, is all about pivoting. And it sounds like you've done that, right? You've changed models to who you needed to become in that season of your life, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though. Before everybody saw the wins, right? The Mikey skateboarder, the building the brewery, being the mayor. Is there any messes that you were quietly dealing with that nobody knows about?
And 99% of the story I just told you was failure and challenge. It's really only 1% that's wins.
Yeah.
And so we could find a lot of those examples in every single career path. But I'll say this because this is where I really learned the lesson. And if you haven't learned this yet, this will change everything for you. With skateboarding, this is when I learned it. Skateboarding is so difficult that it takes a lot of time to even learn your first trick. The first trick is the ollie. That means when you jump, the skateboard stays on your feet. And that typically takes about 6 to 9 months until you learn it. So that's 4 hours of trying a trick every single day for months before you can do it once. And then the second trick you learn is almost equally as hard. Then you get into the position I was in, which was I was a pro skateboarder. And when I wanted to go try a trick, I would have to call the filmers, call the photographers, go out and try a trick. And a trick would usually take me about 3 hours to land it. And that was me jumping off stairs or jumping down handrails. So every time I would mess up, it hurt. So my body was in pain. I had to walk up those stairs every time, which was a sign of I messed up and failed. And I would have to keep my mind in the game until I landed the trick once. Then I would have to do it again the next day and the next day to create a video part. The video part was really 3 minutes of the tricks I landed. So that was hours and hours and hours of failure just for somebody to see 3 minutes of me succeeding. And that taught me a lot. Really what that means is if you're somebody who struggles with the idea of failure, you have to change your perspective. And you have to understand that failure is normal, it's consistent, and it's the majority. And as long as you are willing to stick with the failure, you will get to experience the success. And so don't fear it. You have to welcome it. And then once you welcome it, life actually gets a lot more exciting because what's possible just means commitment. If I'm willing to stay in, I can win. If I end up checking out, I lose. And it really is that simple.
Okay, I've got a question that came up, and I'm imagining you walking up the stairs, right? Kind of, you know, first couple times you're like, shake it off, you're good. After many times, you've got the film crew around you.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that imposter syndrome where you're like, these freaking guys must be going, like, you know, you're sitting there, you're a pro skater, you know, you're like, I'm the guy, and I can't even get a freaking trick done. These guys are filming me. I'm wasting time. And does that pressure, I guess my question really is, how do you stay calm under pressure? Because you still got to get the trick.
Yep.
But now you're feeling pressured to get it done. Does that make sense?
It does. So I don't want to make this sound bigger than it is because it's not war, but it feels like war. It's a mental war that you're going through. So when you add pain into your process, you start wrestling with your mind because everything in your body is saying stop. And so it becomes a game of keeping your mind engaged. And so what that meant for me, a lot of times I had to lie to myself. And I know that sounds insane, but I would have to continuously tell myself I can do it, even when everything in me was telling me I can't. And so all those external factors are in play. When you have a guy sitting on the stairs for, 2-3 hours, and every time I'm messing up, a lot of those times my board is coming close to hitting them. And so, yeah, that comes into play. You can call it imposter syndrome. You can call it lack of self-value. You can call it a lot of things. And that is all in play. The thing that becomes interesting is if you lie to yourself enough, you actually start believing it. And so you have to be very careful with that, because you can lie to yourself and tell you something's not possible, and you're going to believe it, and then you're going to be stuck where you are. Or you can actually lie to yourself and say you could do it, and before you know it, you actually believe it, and then you go out and do. So yeah, all of those factors came into play.
You said something about lying to yourself, and it starts becoming your truth, right? And I've heard, I don't know if you've ever heard of this term called your favorite struggle. And your favorite struggle is kind of like the lie you tell yourself to protect yourself. Like, oh, I'm not a morning person. That's why I'm not nice to people at Starbucks, or I'm not a good salesperson. And it's the lie that we use to protect ourselves for whatever we want to say. And they call it your favorite struggle.
Right.
But I actually have another question on this. If somebody was to, I hate to say label you, but we'll just use the word label you.
Okay.
You operated at a sports at a very highly competitive level. You in the distribution alcohol world, very, very competitive. Again, another competitive. Now you're in the financial district of lending money, very competitive. I'm very familiar with real estate with my background. What kind of person, like you're not just an athlete, right? You're not just an entrepreneur, because you've gone into different entrepreneurial journeys. Now you're mayor, right? Obviously. So are you a frontierman? Are you a leader? Like, what are you?
Really good question. What I strive to be is a leader. And that's been a journey that I'm continuously on. So I'd like to think that every situation I've been in is either a test or an opportunity to become better at leading. And that's looked different based on the career I was in. When I was skateboarding, it was just me. And so I had to just worry about myself and me staying in the game. When we started the first business, that became a team sport. And that was the first time my leadership skills were actually exposed, and they were actually a little bit weak. So I had to perfect that. And then each thing I've done has been a little bit more competitive and has taken on more responsibility. So what I think is absolutely at play is you have to learn how to be responsible with a little before you're put in a situation of being able to be responsible with a lot. And that's been a 20-year journey for me. So I would say at times I look back and go, you know what? I did a pretty good job leading there. At other times, I see the opportunity that I missed and I attempt to correct it so that the next time I'm in that situation, I can do better. And so I would say I'm a constant work in progress.
Do you, as crazy as all these things that you've done are, you would say there's no connection, but I would say, I don't know what it is yet. I haven't figured out, but there is a connection between all these things. Do you think you would be mayor today if you were not a professional skateboarder?
That's a really good question. There is a connection to all of them. I would say no. I would probably not be mayor if I wasn't a pro skateboarder, but really what that comes down to, I think, is I'm a competitive person and I like to win, but more importantly, I hate to lose. And so that, at least before I move into something, I am going for it. So I'm all in. So I think that is an important factor. Secondarily, if you look at my whole career, skateboarding, I was interviewed all the time. So I had to learn how to communicate. Then when I went into the brewery, we had to raise money from investors. So I had to get really good at communicating and building trust. And then with the brewery, we had to market. So I had to make sure that I had a message that resonated. Now moving into the private equity firm, I have over 600 investors with me. That means I have spoken to probably 10,000 investors about what I'm doing. And so really it comes down to reps. I've put in the reps to be able to communicate. I play to win. And so going into a new space, I have learned that I have to humble myself at the beginning to make sure I understand the game that I'm attempting to play. And then I either need to learn the skill set that applies to that game, or I have to surround myself with the team to be able to succeed. And once you understand the game you're playing, I've done this enough times to know how to win. And so that just came through time. I just had to spend time doing it. And now I believe I have a pretty good framework that I can succeed at anything, considering it's something that I want to do. The goal is beyond myself, and then I'm willing to do the same disciplines to get there.
Do you, and I firmly believe it is, but do you think business, any of these businesses, maybe not the business of the pro skater, but I actually, listen, unless you're the Michael Jordan of skateboarding or the Tony Hawk, you've got to get along with people, right? I'm sure there's a political game that has to be played in anything. Yeah. So would you say all of these are tied to your ability to communicate and be a people relationship person? Because I do, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would say, first and foremost, there's gifts that we've all been given. And I do have a couple just God-given gifts that I was given that come natural to me. And two of them you just explained. I can communicate, I can tell a story, and for whatever reason, the way I say it is engaging. So that was one God gave me. Secondarily, I like people. So I tend to do really well around people. And then another one is, even when people disagree with me, or even, people that come at me hot, if somebody's attacking me, I've always had an ability to stay calm and diffuse the situation. And at the end of the day, business is people. Oh, that's all it is. You're working with people. You're trying to get people bought in. You're trying to navigate through problems. That has been a skill set that's just been very beneficial when it comes to business, really in general.
So let me ask you this. If obviously we're talking about your wins, right? Is there a moment during these trials and tribulations, because you almost had to reset, I'm assuming, you became a master at skateboarding. Mm-hmm. That's not relatable to the alcohol world.
Right.
You had to become a master at that, had to reset. So there's a lot of ego checking, I guess we would say.
Yeah.
But is there a moment when you were ready to quit, but kept going for whatever reason?
That's a big one. There has not been a moment yet where I was truly willing to quit, but there's been instances where the valley was deeper than others, I think is the best way to say it. And gosh, as you say it, it's almost like, which example do I want to give you? With skateboarding, the one that was the most challenging in skateboarding is whenever you got hurt. And so getting hurt, and there's been times where I had to have surgery, being taken out of the game, you definitely start going through the mental war of, is my time done? Can I come back from this? Will I ever be what I once was? I didn't look at that as quitting. I was scared more than anything. In, business, gosh, there's a lot of times where you question yourself. I would say for business, the times that I was the most insecure usually was during the beginning stages. I have an idea. The company isn't launched yet. I'm starting to present it to investors. And when investors tell you no, yeah, you question yourself. Am I really onto something? And then to add to that, I'm typically a little bit more contrarian in my approach and what I'm trying to create. And because of that, usually when I'm launching a business, it goes against what the masses are doing. And so whenever you're doing that, it's lonely. And so sometimes that gets to you for sure. I would say the part that was, like, if I really cut it down, the most difficult points for me were at the end of my skateboarding career, when it really came to a halt. And I had to no longer be the professional skateboarder and move into the next business. The identity part to that was really difficult. There was a moment in time where I felt like I was lost. I didn't know who I was. And in that scenario, all the skill set that you have, it feels like you don't even know how to apply it. And so it's not that I was willing to quit during that. It was just dark. And so I would say there's been times where my path has seemed very clear. There's been times where the path has felt pretty foggy. And that can be discouraging at times. But I would say, I think the part that's kept me in really comes down to my faith in God. It's like everything I'm doing, I believe is not about me. I think whether it's business, whether it's relationships, it's all an opportunity to glorify the one who put me here. And because of that, I feel like the why behind it isn't about me. And that actually has, I think, been the reason why I've been willing to stay in when times have got pretty difficult.
So, it's funny. You talked about, failing and that kind of thing. I think that as entrepreneurs, and I coach hundreds of business owners over the years, everybody talks about the wins, but I ask them, how many times are you willing to fail? And the bullshit answer is, well, whatever it takes. Well, that's a lie, right? I mean, Walt Disney got turned down, 302 times for Disneyland from bank loans. I don't know that after about 50 times, I may go, okay, maybe this mouse idea is stupid. Like maybe this isn't going to work. But you and I both being from Southern California and anywhere, what would the world be like if Walt Disney quit on his 300th no? Right? Tesla. So I don't think people talk about how many times are they willing to get punched in the face to do with their why, what they believe in. Do they truly believe, and do they have the certainty and the belief? And what I've learned is when you look at successful people, obviously you're one of them. If you look at what they have, it's the belief. They have certainty that no matter what anyone else says, something inside of them makes them get up and say, we're going to do it again. And we're going to do it again. Because if not, the naysayers would, they pull you back in the bucket, so to speak. Let me ask you, let's just say the low moment in your life, whether it was post skateboarding or maybe in the, pre alcohol or whatever business venture you're in, take me to that moment that where you were. And I'm just curious, what was the version of you and what did you believe in? Like, what was your belief at that moment?
Okay. So I'm going to say something here. Because I think you're right, but like anything, I think there's some nuance to it. Okay. So you will have ideas that don't work. I think that's the reality. You might have a business that fails, and whether your belief system is as strong as it is, you are still susceptible to a business going down. I don't think that necessarily means that you weren't willing to see it through. Sometimes that happens. I think when entrepreneurs say, I'm willing to do it until I succeed, that means if a business goes out, you don't give up at that point. That means it's on to the next. So I still think that belief system holds true. For some people, though, I think the lack of experience can potentially put you in a scenario where the odds are higher of a business failing. For example, if you've never started a business, but you have the mindset that anything's possible, you might not go through the beginning stages to figure out if there's even demand for your product. And so you might have a great idea and you may go into a saturated market and you just don't have the ability to compete because it's a red ocean scenario. So I think there is a lot of work that goes in on the front end to make sure that you even have a viable option. But even with a viable option, you're going to get hit with a lot of challenges. So if you're not willing to stick with it, well, then that doesn't even matter. As far as me, when I was skateboarding, this has been the progression of myself. When I was skateboarding, I was obsessed, but I wanted to prove people wrong. There's always been this thing in me where when people doubt me, I am motivated by that. I don't know how to explain it. I found a way to probably make an unhealthy scenario healthy, but the doubt in me drives me. But the problem I had with skateboarding is it became about me. I want to win. I want to prove people wrong. I want to feel valuable. I want to feel important. And so I was the God in my life. And at that time, I was married. I had 2 kids. And to really let you guys in on what was a very challenging moment for me, when my career ended, I was on the couch. I had just had surgery. I couldn't skate. I knew it was over. And my wife came up to me and said, I'm miserable. Like, this isn't what I signed up for in our marriage. And I had to come to the reality that I was so focused on winning in one element of my life, and everything else in my life was exploding. And so I had to really start prioritizing what was really valuable in my life. Thank God this happened early, because this usually happens to us when we're older, and then we're left with regret. And so what I had to do was really go, okay, what's the most valuable things in my life? I want to succeed with my marriage more than I want to succeed in business. I want to be a good dad more than I want to succeed in business. And so I had to kind of address some of the issues that I had internally, which was how I felt value, how I felt love. And I had to really do a 180. And in that moment, this is where I landed on. I had to find out what my true purpose was. I had to find out what my true identity was. And I didn't want to pick something that could be taken again. So the best way to say that was, when I was skateboarding, my identity was that I was a pro skateboarder. My purpose is that I was here to skateboard. And when that went away, it felt like it felt like I lost. It felt like I didn't know who I was. And as I was going through the trial of finding out what I could actually build a foundation on, it became pretty limiting. Okay, I can start another company. My new identity could be the founder of this. But what happens if that company goes away? Am I back in this scenario where I'm lost? And that's really what drove me to answer the deeper question that most of us avoid because it's scary, which is, why are we on this planet? Like, why are we here? And until we know why we're here, we have no ability to then gauge how we're doing. And so I landed on, I was created, right? Is this all an accident, or is this for a reason? I landed on, I'm created. Okay, if I was created, who's my creator? And then I landed on God. And then that really became the foundation of what I'm even out to achieve. And it all comes down to him. I'm here to glorify him. That's it. And so I might have a business that's taken from me. That doesn't change my purpose or the reason why I'm here. I might have a relationship that becomes distressed. That doesn't change my mission here. And since that moment happened for me, this was about 2017, I've had more trials through 17 to now than I ever had before. And I've never been questioned on the reason why I'm here since that point. And I think we all have to do that. I would encourage you guys to ask those difficult questions, because those are questions we don't get to answer when we're gone. So I think it's very important we do it while we're here.
Let me ask you, that the version of you, who you were, what did you have to let go of to become the new identity that I'm looking at today?
I had to let go of my ego. I had to let go of control. And I had to let go of the things I was worshiping, ultimately. I was worshiping success. I was worshiping the idea of being validated through people praising me. I had to basically give up this idea that I am the one. And that was not an easy task. I mean, when you start talking about control, what happens when we die, I liked feeling like I was in control of my own life. The reality is, you started off this conversation by saying we lie to ourselves in some cases to protect ourselves. I think control is one of the biggest ways we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves that we are in control because it's scary to think that we can navigate through life when we're really not. At the end of the day, I could walk out of this office right now, get in my car, get in an accident. That's the end of me. And I had to give up on that and really accept the fact that I am not in control. And if I do die, am I scared of that? Am I fearful of what happens next? And that took some time, that took some work. But from where I am today versus back then, I don't fear death at all, in the slightest. The things that are out of control, I have completely given up to the Lord. And that has been very freeing. And so I would say I struggle more now because my weakness is I feel like I'm paying more attention to. But if you were to gauge who I am today versus who I was 10 years ago, at least from like earthly terms, am I a good person? I think I'm doing much better today than I was.
So the person you are today, and I want to get into what you're doing with the capital company. Like, what is it that you get up and fight for every day now? Like, what are you protecting? Not as the mayor, but for Mikey.
Okay. So this one for me was really exposed after Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Okay.
And when that happened, I felt like in that moment, the Lord really put on my heart that I had to make a decision. And that decision was, who am I going to fear? Am I going to fear man or am I going to fear God? And that was convicting because a lot of the things that I was doing even 3 months ago, it was with, let's call it me being the mayor. I found that my decisions that I was making had become too strategic. What are people going to think? Am I going to lose votes because of this decision? With the business, am I doing this decision? What's investors going to think if I say this? And I really had to make the decision on who I'm living my life for. And in that moment, I repented for that. Like I knew that I was doing something that I think was honoring myself. I don't think I was giving enough glory to the Lord for the position I was put in. And so now, to answer your question, my mornings are starting off in prayer. And I'm starting off saying, Lord, what is the mission for me today? And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I glorified you throughout my day. And maybe that looks like me doing a good job with our company. Maybe that looks like me speaking to one of our team members through a challenge they're going in. Maybe that looks like some random kid shooting me a DM talking about him going through a struggle and me spending 20 minutes trying to help him. That's how I'm living my life right now. And I'm praying that I continue living my life that way for the rest of it.
Is there something that you wish, like you've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, right? You've seen different, and when I say that, like you've been in the skater world, the pro skater world, the beverage alcohol world, you run in the gamut.
Yeah.
Is there a truth that you wish somebody would have told you a long time ago?
This would have been very valuable for me. This is going to be on reinventing yourself or starting over. And just to prepare you, anyone listening to this that has a W-2 job and you're going to work at that job for the rest of your career, transition might not feel like it's in your cards because you're not an entrepreneur and you don't have to start over. But what we see with a lot of people who retire, they go through this challenge on retirement. They have to reinvent themselves. They got to figure out what's next. And I would say whenever I've gone into the next thing, the imposter syndrome that you mentioned, I struggle with. And so I'll tell you a story on how that looked when I transitioned out of the beer industry and into the real estate investment world. Right when I started the firm, I found myself in meetings with a caliber of person that was much more high level as far as business goes and complexity than my past business. So I'd walk into a meeting, everybody's in suits. Everybody has MBAs. I got people worth billions of dollars. I got people, managing, multi-billion-dollar investments. And my first meeting, I walked in a sweatshirt, right? Walked in with a sweatshirt. 3 of my partners are there. They're in, suits. Everyone's in suits. And the group I was meeting with thought I was the assistant. And so I walked into the meeting and the way they were talking to me was as if I was an assistant. And I remember getting really uncomfortable. I was quiet with the meeting. I was like, am I supposed to be here? And I had the opportunity to go for it. I think at this point, this was a while ago, but I think at this point, they were talking about the thesis of multifamily development back in like 2017. And I just went, you know what? I'm going for it. And I started telling my vision. This is what I want to do here. This is what we're missing. This is the stall out in the industry. Here's the opportunity. And I remember very quickly, I started owning the room. Everybody's eyes on me. I've got them, right? I've locked in the eyeballs. And then at the end of the meeting, every single one on the other table came up to me and apologized. Dude, I am so sorry. When you walked in, I thought you were just a random kid that was like interning. I have never heard anyone say what you just said. We're in. And after that meeting, it was very reassuring for me, but this is what I learned. There's only one of me. There's no other duplicate of Mikey Taylor. And that applies for every single one of you listening to this. We are unique. So we better step on the gas and magnify what our unique skill and style is. And that is eventually going to be very beneficial. So I started really leaning in on me being different. And I started using that as a strategic advantage, as opposed to being insecure about who I am. And I would say from that point on, that our business really started gaining traction when I started being okay with me being different. And then before you know it, people start copying you. And then you got to figure out kind of new ways to be unique, but lean in on it. The things that make you you that are different, don't run from that. Like, go all in on what makes you you.
I love that, man. I it's funny. My secondary follow-up, if I was in that room, would be like, why do you think it's okay to talk to an intern that way? That would have been my second question so just because I'm an intern, that would have been okay. It's kind of like the guy that was talking down to me because he thought I was a deckhand. Not there's anything wrong with being a deckhand, but he doesn't know me, doesn't know my past, has no idea that, I just came in from flying from China and I was on a layover.
Yes, that's 100% right. But remember, you and I now have time. We have time in the game. But when you're just getting started, you're uncomfortable, right? Now, I would have made a joke out of it right when they said it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I could go back into time in that meeting and they would have spoken to me like the intern, I would have stopped everyone and said, hey guys, there's a reason why I'm able to walk into this room in a sweatshirt and you guys are all in suits. I would have reframed the entire thing.
Right.
But that comes with time, right?
Sure.
It takes time for you to understand what's going on and really have confidence in who you are. And then you're able to really, I think, take control of certain situations. But when you're just getting started, you're uncomfortable with doing that,
Sure. So Mikey, let's talk a little bit about the capital raising that you're doing. Tell me what you have going on with that.
Okay. So I would say there's a two-prong approach. Number one, when we talk about what makes me different, right? In commercial real estate, especially when we started, almost everyone raised money from high net worth individuals, family offices, and it was done very old school. You would, pitch them, go out to dinners, lunches. Maybe you'd have like, a 12-person dinner and you'd pitch at scale, but that was basically what people did. And the avatar was pretty singular focused. And what I wanted to do at that time was basically be a direct to consumer approach to invest. And I wanted to do it through social media. So I wanted to create a brand online that was actually cool, right? Commercial real estate, especially back then, was boring. It was stale. Everybody was in suits. There was nothing that the youth was resonating with. And so I started going on a pretty big campaign of creating content online to build a following of people that wanted to achieve financial freedom, that would look at real estate investing as being something they wanted to be into and be proud of. And then we started raising money online. And that took us a little bit of time to figure out. But I would say now about 90% of our investment comes through Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. And then we still do have investors where we take more of the, conventional approach. But to let everybody in, we have about $352 million of AUM. We are aggressively buying right now. So if you go, really deep in the weeds of what's going on in real estate, a lot of markets on multifamily have corrected, which means you can now buy at a discount. Simultaneously, because of the rate hike in 22, that stalled out a lot of construction, and that put a lot of the institutional capital on the sidelines. And so right now, I would say deal flow is up, and it does not feel like you are competing with a lot of people. So we are stepping on the gas right now. My head is down, and I am viewing 26 as being a window where you have the opportunity to make a lot of money. And so we're going after it. And then what I think you'll see, if history repeats itself, as things start normalizing, more capital starts going back into a market, it starts being competitive, prices start rising, and then it gets a little bit more challenging. So we are raising money right now for a lot of offerings. And I'm hoping that after this moment ends, I'm going to look back and go, oh, we went after it. Because if I could go back to 2009 to 2012, I would have stepped on the gas more so. And so we're doing that now.
Yeah, I've been in real estate for about 20 years, and I had a pretty large property management company before exiting. But I saw, I've been doing it since 2003. I saw more millionaires created post 2007 than leading up to the 10 years to that. And it's, listen, it's the contrarian, as you said, everyone's running out, you're running in.
Yeah.
Everything's on sale.
Yeah.
I mean, deals are on sale. Now, a lot of people purchased properties and assets that they're kind of paying the price on right now with floating rates and everything else going on.
Right.
And I know quite a few people that are having some challenges. That's just a bad business model. At some point, that's what you got to look at. It's just a bad business model.
That's right. I'm going to give everybody some advice real quick on, if you're a passive investor and you're looking at groups, the number one question you need to ask a group is, have they gone through recessions? And if they have, ask them how the performance was going out of it. Because the moments that we're in right now, you just nailed it. These are the moments where the smart investors take back the market. And so if you look at, let's call it 2016 to 2020, everyone looked good because the market covered a lot of your weaknesses and a lot of your errors. And now, unfortunately, you're seeing a lot of those people lose properties. You're seeing investments not perform. And in this moment, this is when you see what we call the smart money really start taking advantage. And so I think that's a very important question to ask an operator when you're investing with them. How long have you been doing this? And if you have not gone through a correction, be very, very diligent that they have prepared for things going wrong. Because one thing I can guarantee you, things will go wrong. I've never had an investment. We're managing 25 properties, almost every single one we've developed. There has been a problem with every single one. So you're investing in a group that is good at problem solving.
The people, you're investing in the people.
And 100%, that's another one that's very important. You're not investing in a deal. You're really not. You're investing in the group that is going to execute on the plan. And that deal is just the byproduct. And so I think it is very good. You did a very good job with this interview. You're underwriting me. You're trying to figure out who I am as a person. As investors, we need to do that with the operators we're investing in. How do they solve problems? I would actually take it a step further, and I typically start asking character questions on the people I'm investing in outside of real estate. What's your marriage look like? What's your relationship with your kids look like? How do you view money? I want to make sure that you're a caliber of person that I feel comfortable with entrusting my money into. And if that's the answer, well, then if we go through an investment together and things go wrong, I'm investing in you to navigate through that. And I also understand that sometimes a great operator can make a mistake that is out of their control. And maybe that means the investment doesn't work out. I would way rather be in that position than investing in a group where the character alignment is not there, there's challenge, and then something goes wrong. I don't want to be in that position again.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into this subject, but I speak on the circuit for real estate investors and property management conventions and conferences. And, I always tell people, if you're going to get a partner, you get a tenant in your property, you do a credit criminal check on your tenant.
Yep.
Why would you not do that on your partner?
100%.
I mean, why wouldn't you not vet your partner? Why wouldn't you want to talk to 3 referrals? Who have you done business with? I want to talk to them, and I want to see the deal. I want to see how the deal went. And I don't care if it was a bad deal. Look, it's 4 walls and a roof.
That's right.
It's the person running the business inside those 4 walls and the roof that I want to see. It's the character. Like you said, bad things happen to good people. We can't change the interest rates.
Yep.
but we can change how you handled it. Did you pay your investors back? How did you handle the situation? So again, these are just some of the things that I don't think people realize how important it is to relationship. It's about, and I've got a lot of good friends that are big into real estate. My buddy's partners with Ken McElroy and other people like that,
Yeah,
and Brandon
I know.
Turner,
Yeah.
all these guys I'm friends with. It's the person. And
100%.
again, bad things happen. That's cool.
Yep.
But who is the person? And because, like you said, man, you are so much spot on. And that's what I tell people. Their deals, everybody was an expert in 2020 and COVID. I mean, all the Arab short-term rentals, and everyone was telling me, this is the next. Steve, you're too old. You don't get it. That's not business. This is the new business. I'm like, okay, we'll see how that works out for you.
Yeah.
And it's a pendulum. It swings.
Time will always expose the truth. Always.
Absolutely.
I couldn't have said it better. You absolutely nailed it. There's a lot of everyone listening to it should rewind what you just said and listen to it again. That there's so much wisdom in what you just shared.
Well, Mikey, man, I freaking loved talking to you. I don't want to take more of your time. If somebody wants to know more about, obviously you're successful. There's no doubt about it, man. I mean, you have peaked some of the highest peaks in every arena, sports, business, candidacy for mayor. I mean, I got to say, man, I'm freaking very, very impressed. And obviously there's no doubt you're going to crush it, because I could tell you don't have an ego. You're very servant minded. These are the things that it takes. If somebody wants to know more about investing with you, talking to you, how do they find you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that compliment. One thing I'm going to share is we're very excited about this. We just launched a new fund where you do not need to be an accredited investor any longer. Nice. And we've made the minimum investment $5,000.
Oh, wow.
The reason why we did that is the benchmark to get involved in private equity or private real estate is very high. And so I wanted, for those that want to get invested that didn't meet the requirements, an ability to actually have a shot at it. I love equal opportunity. I do not like equal outcome. I love equal opportunity. And so we just rolled out that fund. It is Commune Omni Fund. For anybody that wants to get a hold of me, you can find me on all the platforms. I'm on all of them. I'm on Instagram the most. Shoot me a DM. I'd love to hear about what you're doing. If you're ever interested in investing with me, you could send me the message invest. You could do that on a DM, on a comment. That's going to trigger a software to allow somebody from my team to reach out, and then we can get on a call. Also, I do a live call every Wednesday at 5:00. It's all educational, so we pick a different topic to go over it. I would love for you to join me there. And then last, I have a podcast called Life with Mikey. It's on all the platforms where we highlight entrepreneurs, business. Our whole goal is to educate the audience so that they have the tools to go out and succeed in any aspect of their life that they want to.
I love it, man. That is so cool. Maybe I'll be a guest on yours one day.
I would love that. Next time you're out here, we'll start working at getting you scheduled.
That'd be awesome, man. That would be cool. Well, Mikey, it was a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to talk to you. I love sharing stories. I love hearing like-minded people. And I got to say, man, you have a story, brother, and it is awesome. And you should be very proud of it. I'm sure your family's proud. And, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? Is the people close to you, creating the memories. And I'm sure you have a lot of them. So yeah. I want to thank you for your most precious thing, which is your time. So thank you for being on. For those of you watching, again, you got to look this guy up, follow him. Obviously, I don't know where he'll be next and what he's doing next, but I'm sure it'll be pretty interesting. So everybody, on behalf of Mikey Taylor and myself, I want to thank you guys for watching High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, and we will catch you guys next week on another fantastic episode.